Hi, this is Keith Shingleton with SuperDoge.io. I'm here with Kate from Wells Bring Hope, one of our charities that are in the running. It's actually one of our previous charity partners, one of the first winners. So we just wanted to give the floor to Kate to kind of explain a bit more about their mission and what Wells Bring Hope brings to the world. So welcome, Kate, and go ahead.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Keith. I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you guys a little bit about Wells Bring Hope because I think I'm biased, but I think what we do is pretty amazing. So Wells Bring Hope was started in 2008 by Barbara Goldberg, she was a retired marketing professional, and she heard a talk by Gil Garcetti, who was the former DA of Los Angeles, and after he retired, he went to West Africa and as a photographer and took a bunch of photos and really started he made a book about the water crisis in West Africa, and he came and spoke to a group of women that Barbara put together to hear different speakers, and he was one, and really moved Barbara and a bunch of these other women to try and do something because they were educated, well-traveled women who were really unfamiliar with this extreme water crisis in West Africa, where people were dying for lack of water, for lack of clean water. So they got together and decided they would try and raise enough money to fund 5 wells. That was in 2008, and now we have funded over 700 wells. And Barbara volunteers, works full-time for free for Wells Bring Hope. I'm the only paid employee. Everybody else is a volunteer. And every dollar that is donated to Wells Bring Hope goes directly to the field. Did somebody say something? Oh, okay. So we fund wells only in Niger, which is the poorest country in the world. It's in West Africa. 64% of people have no access to clean water. And so what we do is go in with our partners, World Vision, who are our partners on the ground who do all of our drilling. They identify the village that needs water, and before the well can be drilled, they go in and they work with the villagers to really try and change habits before that well is even installed, because in majority of these rural villages in Niger, they practice open defecation. They have no culture of hand washing or hygiene and sanitation. So they go in ahead of the well being drilled to begin all of those practices, so that once the well is in place, they have laid the groundwork for a real transformation in habit and lifestyle. Then the well is drilled, and the life is completely transformed in these villages. Prior to the well going in, women and girls spend 3 to 6 hours a day walking for water, walking miles to open water sources like ponds or open wells that are often contaminated, and bringing water back to their families and homes. So once there's a well in their village, their time is incredibly freed up. The girls get to go to school, and women have newfound time to work on developing small businesses. Our partners set up microfinance training groups, so they help these women to give them some fundamental basic skills, because most of them have missed out on education and need to be taught the very basics of money, even counting. And so they help them to set up savings groups where the women pool their money and take turns borrowing it to set up small, very small businesses, then sell their wares at markets and help to contribute to their families and to their communities. I'm trying to think what else. Once a well is drilled, child mortality drops by upwards of 70%. That's obviously the main thing our tagline is saving lives with safe water. So that's the primary benefit, and the main reason we do what we do is to save lives. Barbara, our founder, often tells the story of her first trip to Niger, meeting a woman named Halima, who had lost 11 of her 12 children to waterborne diseases. And when obviously the well that we brought to her village had arrived too late to spare her great tragedy, but she was overjoyed that that the other women in her village wouldn't experience the kind of loss that she had, because once a well is drilled, waterborne disease is virtually eliminated, and children no longer die of, a simple case of diarrhea, which sadly is the case. 1 in 7 children in Niger don't reach their 5th birthday, and it usually is because of a simple case of diarrhea, from contaminated water.
That's crazy. So like that's just something I learned, I guess, right there, Kate, is you realize you see a lot of the different charities and the push for clean water around the world, and being able to have access to the water, and you understand at a level, I guess, or a small level, that is very necessary for people, but in reality it's a lot more. It affects every single sector of everybody's life there. So like when you talked
Mhm.
about being able to go to school, saving the 3 to 6 hours a day, getting rid of the actual diseases and stuff that come from that, and from the cleanliness and stuff, like that's something that for me, it's not something I really think of, to be
Mhm.
honest with you, and I feel kind of bad not really thinking of it that way, but you being able to put that in perspective, I appreciate that, and it really does give me a different understanding of what water well, or what bringing this to these villages actually mean and do for them.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking, because I think we can all kind of understand the concept of access to water. Everybody knows that that's, it's essential for life, right? It's, you can't go very long without water. But yeah, what that's certainly something that I learned having worked with Wellspring Hope, was just the trickle down effects of not having water. That because in throughout Africa, it is women's responsibility and girls' responsibility to get water. So if they have to spend all day on that task, then they miss out on these other things, like education. 85% of women in Niger are illiterate, because the girls don't generally go to school beyond age 8 or 9, when they're old enough to walk with their moms for water. And that also has trickle down effects, right? Because if girls can't, they don't go to school, they have no prospect of becoming, getting a career, or becoming a professional. They often get married very young. Um, a lot of girls in Niger, uneducated girls in particular, are married by age 15, and then they get pregnant and they have babies, and they develop obstetric fistulas because their bodies aren't fully developed. And so there is a huge trickle down effect of not having access to safe water that impacts, particularly women in
And it's
Niger.
just a vicious, and it's just basically a vicious cycle at the end of the day. So for these wells, what, like, so when you drill a well for a village, generally how many people or how many family members are able to drink and have that clean water from that one well, I guess? I know it probably changes depending, but what is the, can you talk a little
Right.
bit more
So
about that, I guess?
sure. The goal is for one, we've actually recently made the transition from hand pump wells, which are just like what it sounds. First of all of our wells tap aquifers that are 250 to 300 feet underground. So these are not wells that villagers could dig themselves. They requires big heavy duty drilling rigs to access these aquifers. But once you tap into these aquifers, there's an endless supply of safe, clean water. The only limitation is, when you have these hand pump wells, it is still a pretty physical activity to pump the water up from underground. So that made it difficult for older women or the disabled. Now we have transition, and the government of Niger has required that, except in unusual circumstances, every new well that is drilled in Niger is to be a solar powered mechanized well. So we've fully made that transition. And these are huge water systems that they use solar power to pull the water up from underground. So no longer requires a hand pump. People just access water at a tap, much like we do. And interestingly, they're really moved by that. They talk about, how this is just like the water in the city that the people in the city have. They just go on, turn on a tap, and fill their jugs. There's no longer hand pumping. Um, but back to your original question, these solar powered mechanized systems will send water to many different villages. But what we do is provide $6,300, and that pays for one tap. And a tap, the goal is for that tap to serve 250 people. So in a larger village, they might have 4 taps spread throughout the village. in reality, because there aren't, and because we're scaling up, right? So there are people coming from other villages and coming from farther away than ideally they should have to. So we say that on average now each well serves about 500 people, but the goal is to get that number down to 250 people so that they're not long lines and people don't have to walk as far from their home to get water.
So that's awesome. So generally, is there a lot, like, is there security needed for any of this, or is there any ill will towards this, or is it a pretty positive thing for anybody around, and everybody kind of respects it that way as well? Or is there threats of outside people coming and damaging that for the villages?
There, Niger, like much of West Africa, is under threat of Boko Haram. The village, there are parts of Niger where we can't work currently because of that. But the villages where we work are have not been subject to terrorist attacks. And on us, so the villagers wouldn't stand much chance against a big, group of Boko Haram well-armed terrorists invading. But on a smaller level, the villagers are fiercely protective of this water and these wells. And so we have not had any we've not had any wells damaged by terrorism. And we do on a, wells break down, right? And things happen, they need to be repaired. And that is another part of our process, is requiring that every village that gets a well develops a well maintenance committee, and everyone in the village contributes some token amount to a well maintenance fund. So they all have buy-in and in an actual literal investment in the well and in maintaining it. So all of our
That's
wells
awesome.
are sustainable. Yeah, and we visit every village where we've drilled a well. Someone is going back into that village once a month to make sure that they are practicing hand washing, that they are cleaning their water jugs. We teach them drip farming and use of the gray water so they can grow gardens that help to ward off famine during times of drought, which obviously is occurring more and more frequently, unfortunately. But so there is it's a full program designed to make sure that all these changes that they really last, that they carry on to the next generation.
Awesome. Well, no, that's great, and then so it's a learning aspect too, which is definitely needed. But I
Hmm.
bet you it fills a lot of the people there with pride and happiness at the end of the day, being able to look outside of just surviving day to day.
Hmm.
So I see huge value there for sure for a lot of people, and I love that. So you were actually one of our first charity partners at Super Doge.
Hmm.
And would you be able to talk a little bit about what you did with the first donations that were sent through? And I know you wrote something. It's actually being updated on the website as we speak. It should be there. But even that would be great, just to kind of have a quick overview of what the funds went to last time.
Yeah, so that was a really huge part of our success last year, and and fundraising in a pandemic is challenging, um, and to get that big infusion of money from you guys was a really helpful to us. We funded, I believe, let's see how we funded, I think, 8 wells with the donation that we got from you. So that's 8 villages that were completely transformed by that gift. And we have, where we, as I said, we get 100% of donations. We're able to direct those directly to funding wells, because our operating expenses are underwritten by Panda Restaurant Group. And every year we have to show Panda that we're doing the best we can and raising as much money as we can. And to get that huge donation from you guys really helped us with them, because like that donations have been down the last 2 years as people are struggling with the pandemic. So that it was an enormous boom to us to have that donation from you guys.
That's great to hear. That's super great. I have a comment here as well for Dan. So this
Mhm.
is one of our admins that's been a great force in Super Doge and pushing it forward. But he said he can't believe this still happens in 2022 to people
Mm.
or kids. And thank you very, very, very much for your hard work, Kate.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
that's
Thank
cool.
you.
He just did the math too. So we're looking at basically clean water to 4,000 people basically is what you guys were able to provide that first round. Eh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow,
And like
that's
that,
awesome to
it
hear.
was, yeah. No, it was amazing. And it's,
Okay,
you know,
well, and
I
is
really think it's a great, it's, you know, $6,300 is what it costs for us to provide one tap for a village. And in the grand scheme of things, not a huge amount of money for all of the,
that's not. I
yeah,
mean, you look at the things we are frivolous with here,
right.
and it's pretty it's a wake up call when you actually look at the numbers compared to what it's doing for that many people, compared to
Yeah,
what we can spend in a week here,
I know.
buying stuff that doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Like
So
so
I really
so
appreciate you letting me share what we do with you guys.
yeah, no, I appreciate it too. So if anybody's looking for more information on Wellspring Hope, where would they go, Kate?
Wellspringhope.org.
Okay, and is there anything else that you guys look for, like in terms of volunteers or anything like that? Is there anywhere to reach out if people are looking to get in to help a little bit extra with the charity?
Sure. Yeah, we have like that. As I said, I'm the only paid employee, so we rely a lot on volunteers to do everything from grant writing to blog writing to social media. And we post positions frequently on Volunteer Match. So if you Google Volunteer Match Wellspring Hope, you'll find our current list of offerings. And you can always email me at kate@wellspringhope.org.
Perfect, Kate. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions here before we come to the end? Or Kate, did you have anything else that you wanted to shine a light on at all? Or is that you gave a pretty good synopsis, but if there's anything else you want to shine the light on, this
Yeah.
it's
Kate,
No,
can I
I
ask you a
don't
quick
think so.
question?
Sure.
Yes, I was over in India years ago and I was staying in a little village and they had like wells around the village. And then during the day at certain times, people had a schedule. It was a timetable. So say Jerry Kelly can go there from 9 to 10 and so on. Is that the same with you guys for?
Um, no, I don't. It's a good question. I don't think that they have. They may set up a schedule on their own, just informally. We don't
Yeah,
enforce anything like that. But again, the goal is to get in a large village of say 1,000 people. We would
yeah,
want to have at least 4 taps spread out throughout the village so that we could avoid those lines and that backup. But I don't know if they
yeah.
informally sort of set up a schedule like that. They may, but I don't know that for sure.
Right, right, right. Ah, okay. Thank you. Great work you guys are doing. Amazing.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Kate, and thank you, Wellsbring Hope. And if you guys haven't voted yet, go check out the charities in the vote. This is
Yes,
Wellsbring Hope.
please.
If you like what they're talking about, give them the check. And we look forward
Yes,
to talking
please.
to you a lot more here as well, Kate.
Thank you so much, Keith, and thank you, SuperDoge, for all you guys are doing to just even let me introduce our cause to more people. We
Not
really
a problem.
appreciate
We
it.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day,
Thanks.
everyone.
You too.
Bye-bye. Bye.